we are talking about the Boone County Stormwater revisions today. You can follow along. Michelle put the link in the chat, but here you can find the revised Section 28 Stormwater Ordinance, definitions, the proposed changes to the regulations. Okay, so the Stormwater Ordinance went into effect April 15th, 2010, and then we revised them January 21st, 2025. So I thought what I would do is just kind of go through and tell you about what we changed, because that's what's applicable now. So if you have any questions as we go along, let me know. So the first thing we changed was in section 28.1.3, we changed it to stormwater management applicability. And the first point said land development that disturbs 1 acre or more. And we have changed that to say all new development now. And then we added section 5 that says see section 28.8.3 for land disturbance permit applicability. All of the definitions have been moved to section 28.2 in the zoning ordinance. So we also changed the definition of building, county commission, director, and grading to match the Boone County zoning regulations, section 2 definitions, so that we're being consistent all across the zoning regulations. We added definitions for clean fill, common plan of development, common promotional plan, and losing streams. And then we revised some definitions for phasing, redevelopment, and the riparian zone. Probably one of the bigger changes that we made to the definitions was the definition for redevelopment. So within the context of section 28 of the Boone County zoning regulations, see section 28.4.5, which is the redevelopment section. So a change to previously existing improved property. This includes, but it's not limited to, the expansion of existing structures or existing paved areas. In the previous iteration of the ordinance, this said instead of the expansion of existing structures, it was demolition or building of structures. So we just wanted to point out that we tweaked that slightly there. Okay. And then we just tagged on to the end of this sentence, you know, and all applicable financial securities, agreements, easements, permits, etc. So basically, we just want to make sure that we're getting a complete submittal at the beginning of the submittal process, so we can make sure that we've got everything we need and before we start reviewing plans. Okay. Here we just clarified measures required by the stormwater management plans. Okay. With location of stormwater facilities on lots, we added a sentence to say that the lot containing the stormwater facility shall have road frontage and provide vehicular access to the stormwater facility. That way we can guarantee that there's a way for these facilities to be maintained in the future. And then we added 0.7 here that says prohibited location of stormwater BMPs shall not be located in locations that present conflicts such as utility easements, access easements, right of way, etc. Okay. Here we added on a sentence that says if stormwater treatment credits to be acquired by means of sheet flow through established vegetation, the area of established vegetation is to remain undisturbed. This section, we changed the name from channel protection criteria to stormwater flow and release rate criteria. So under 28.4.4.3, this is where you find the tier 1 and tier 2 criteria for development. So we changed the and that you see in point A from or. And then in B, we added channel protection criteria to the third paragraph. And then we moved the flood control criteria up as a subheading of additional tier 2 criteria, and then changed it to read downstream overbank flood and property protection shall be provided by controlling the post-development peak discharge rate to the pre-development rate. This criterion shall be met for the 25-year, 24-hour storm. That was in there before. So we've just moved that. And then we removed the last sentence of that section that was on property zoned, all the different zonings that you see on the screen there. Okay. We revised paragraph 6 here under B. So we added, and the difference in the runoff volume that's predicted due to the development during the 25-year event will be stored and released at no more than 0.17 CFS per acre. So just trying to kind of clarify some of these things that have come up previously. Questions so far?
And I'll also be monitoring the chat, so if anybody wants to drop anything in there, feel free to.
Okay.
Hey, Nikki, I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks like, you guys have eliminated the 1 acre exception. What about, and I know the city of Columbia had this issue whenever they first adopted their stormwater ordinance. What if someone wants to add a 10 by 10 concrete patio in a green space, next to their building? What if they have to add a new electric transformer that's on a bigger, concrete pad or something? I mean, we're talking, just minor increases in impervious area. But is there exceptions, to whenever you're just doing a very minor increase in impervious area?
Nikki, I can weigh in on this if you want.
Sure, Pat.
Zach, was that you? I assume that was speaking? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
So we did not eliminate the 1 acre exception. The problem was the language that was in the original ordinance made it look like the stormwater ordinance did not apply unless you were disturbing an acre or more. All that did was create confusion. The reality is that never should have been in there, because that 1 acre cutoff applies solely to land disturbance permits, not the stormwater ordinance. And with regards to your other question there, if you're going to add like you said, a small transformer pad or something like that, that would probably be viewed as redevelopment anyways. And there's a 3,000 square foot cutoff for redevelopment.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's in the ordinance somewhere then.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Nikki actually already went through that part, but there's a little bit more about it coming up too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So I apologize. I didn't set the slideshow up to necessarily walk through the entire ordinance, but just kind of the big changes that we made. So I should have shared that at the beginning of the presentation. So these are more of the substantial changes, the small things like changing everything from public works to resource management. I didn't include in here, so. Okay, so we moved section 28.44 to start with. The director may waive some or all of the requirements of this section as specified in A, B, C, and D below. And then there's that really long list of the various things that you can do with flow. And then we added this section at the end that says, just clarifying there, for residential subdivisions that do not fall under the tier 2 requirements, water quality treatment will be required for all paved shared drives. Any known downstream flooding problems shall be addressed or detention will be required. So for some of those large acreage subdivisions, where you may only have a handful of lots, if you're paving the shared drive, then we're still going to require the water quality treatment here. Okay. The redevelopment criteria. We renumbered this section just a little bit. So we deleted in the original ordinance this section, which was kind of in the first paragraph there, and then we numbered that first paragraph to read 28.4.5.1. Okay. And then we added this section. So redevelopment projects are not subject to stormwater detention requirements unless there are known downstream issues. So we also added this point that says redevelopment projects that will exceed a 50% increase in impervious surface will be subject to stormwater detention requirements for all new impervious surface. Okay. Before we move into the environmentally sensitive area stuff, I just want to ask one more time if anybody's got any questions. Okay. So moving on to the environmentally sensitive criteria, we changed 28.4.61D to read runoff sources within 1,000 feet of and discharging to a groundwater point recharge feature such as the sinkhole. So that was there before, but we cleaned the definition up just a little bit and added the within 1,000 feet of. Okay, and then we also added runoff that discharges within an identified cave recharge area with permeable soils as determined by the director. So in the original ordinance, those 2 points were kind of together. So we broke them apart and tried to clarify them just a little bit. So this just this section talks about, lowering that land disturbance threshold to 3,000 square feet in an environmentally sensitive area. But also says that, when any of those conditions exist, stormwater management and water quality control will be required. And that's always been in there, but we kind of wanted to clarify what that meant and point back to the sections that are referenced here. And buffer zone widths, we added a section for losing streams. So for losing streams, the buffer zone shall be twice that of the stream buffer requirements. Just to make that clear. So that went from a 50-foot buffer requirement to being twice that of the stream buffer requirements. And sinkhole and cave protections, we tweaked this to read on-site or off-site sinkholes. So we wanted to include both of those. And then under the geological evaluations, again, we added the on-site to the off-site here. So on-site or off-site sinkholes. And then we tried to clarify that it's the map of all depression and collapse sinkholes downstream from and within 1,000 feet of the developing area that are contributing to the groundwater recharge of the area. So make that a little clearer for what we're looking for when those are done. So this section says development may occur in the immediate sinkhole drainage area if the developer provides alternative surface drainage away from the sinkhole while keeping the water in the same surface drainage basin and providing that the water shall not go into another sinkhole drainage area off the applicant's property. That was in the previous ordinance. That's still there. And then we removed this sentence from that statement. So. Okay. So we changed the first point here to read stormwater discharges or drainage that meets criteria for section 28.4.6.1. And then with the next point, we just removed the or easements must be obtained sentence there from the end of it. Okay. So in this section, for filling in sinkholes and sinkhole drainage areas, we removed points I and double I, and just left it with this section. Any questions about the environmentally sensitive areas changes? Okay. So with moving on to clearing and grading, we removed the phasing statement that was 0.5 here and replaced it with other measures may be required in order to ensure that sediment is not tracked onto public streets by construction vehicles or washed into storm drains. And just made it very clear that the permit holder and property owner are responsible, for keeping the streets clean. Okay, then we added a new section for clean fill into the ordinance. So this is what the no actively used clean fill site shall be left in a rough or unlevel condition for more than 14 consecutive days. Any clean fill site which does not receive clean fill for 30 days shall be considered an inactive site. And then we would like that they must be stabilized with temporary stabilization measures within 14 consecutive days of becoming inactive. So that's kind of the in-house policy we had before that we were following for our sites. So we thought we would just add it in here. And then we added another section for phasing requirements. The original ordinance, said phasing means clearing of a parcel of land in distinct sections with stabilization of each section before the clearing of the next, and phasing shall be required on all sites disturbing greater than 30 acres with the size of each phase to be established at plan review. And that's all that it said. So we wanted to expand on that just a little bit more. So we also decided that all phases of land disturbance should be clearly delineated with a contrasting line type and boldness and be numbered so that we can clearly see, on your phasing plan where those phases are. So yeah, the area shall be indicated on each plan. So they've got a pretty bold line on this plan running through it with, it's hard to see because it's a little bit phase 1 and phase 2 delineated there. And And then 5, we added all projects regardless of acreage, which continue beyond or begin after November 1st through March 31st, may, at the director's discretion, be subject to further phasing restrictions, including but not limited to limited area of allowable land disturbance, additional erosion and sediment control practices, dormant seeding at higher application rates, and additional mulching at higher application rates. And we added this just, for some of those sites that have really steep slopes or sensitive features on them, we can make sure that we're getting those protected a little bit better over the winter months. We might require additional temporary sediment basins, use of approved erosion control blankets, or other erosion control strategies necessary as well. Completed areas must be reviewed and approved by resource management prior to opening additional area within a future phase. So when you're working in one phase, that needs to be stabilized before being able to move on to the next phase. Questions about either clean fill or phasing? Okay. So in section 28.6.6 required easements, we changed the width of the closed stormwater conduit changed from 15 feet to 16 feet, or the sum of the conduit diameter and twice the cover depth over the conduit. And then we added in 0.3, stormwater BMP facilities shall be a minimum of 16 feet wide with longitudinal slopes not to exceed a 6:1 and cross slopes not to exceed a 16:1 unless otherwise approved by the director. Okay. Section 28.8.3 is the land disturbance permit. We added a section here that says the state of Missouri permit is required, when they're going to disturb 1 acre more of land, and that needs to be submitted before the county will submit the county's land disturbance permit. This requirement also applies to land disturbance by a developer or a contractor working on their behalf, regardless of the type of development on sites of less than 1 acre that are part of a common plan of development or a common promotional plan. So this is for those builders who are building a home for sale in a subdivision. So you may have 1 lot or 5 lots, but you'll need a state land disturbance permit for the subdivision. 1 permit will cover all your lots. But the county's MS4 is required by the state to make sure that we have all applicable permits. So this is an applicable permit at that point. So we put that in the ordinance, just so that everybody is clear that they're going to need one if that's their situation. Any questions about that? Okay. So we changed this heading to the erosion and sediment control financial security. Previously, it was the performance bonding guarantee. So with the financial security, we removed, in that first paragraph, we removed the list of acceptable financial securities and just replaced that with in a form that's acceptable to the county commission. We also removed the sentence that said for land disturbance permits where no other security is required, the only type of security which will be accepted will be a cash bond. Because I think the majority of you all have worked in the county long enough to know that we haven't just required you to put a cash bond up. We've had multiple forms of securities that we have used for these. So
We do have a question, Nikki, about will plans be reviewed by the county while the state permit is in process?
yes. Yeah, we won't hold it up. We just can't issue our permit until we have a copy of the state permit. Then we added a new section here. We added this section on permanent stormwater best management practice financial securities. We had several developers and contractors asking if they could bond their permanent stormwater BMP features. So for example, if they were building a bioretention cell, you know, they didn't want to build that before the lots were built out because any runoff generated from those lots would enter the bioretention cell, and they didn't want to have to go back in and completely redo it if it got messed up. So they bonded it until so they could build it at the end. So we added this section here that allows you to be able to post a financial security of not less than 150% of the value of the permanent stormwater BMP, which are part of your SWIP. And again, you don't have to, but you can. And then, you know, this basically just says, oh, I have a type. That we will refund your, once the BMP is built, we'll refund your security within 60 days of closing the land disturbance permit there. Questions about that? All right, so with the fees, we removed the fee schedule that was in the previous iteration of the ordinance. It had a list of applicable fees for the permits and the amounts, and we took that out and changed that to say an amounts is determined by the county commission. So moving on to violations and penalties, we changed the remediation date for stormwater discharge permit from 45 days to 14 days. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean for a stormwater discharge permit problem that you have 14 days to fix the problem, but you have 14 days to start, you know, working on a plan for how to remediate the problem. So we wanted to be clear on that because we don't, usually those are big problems, and we didn't want to be just hanging out for 45 days waiting to hear what you might want to do to fix your problems. So you've got 14 days to work with us on how you want to fix it and create kind of that plan, not get all the work done. And then, you know, we added a sentence to the end of engaging in an activity requiring a permit without first obtaining the permit, a permit fee twice the amount of the required permit will be assessed. So if you needed a land disturbance permit and you didn't get one, instead of the $150 fee, we're going to charge you $300 for the permit. And I think on the summary of changes that is on the website, it says that the section 28.9.3 was going to go into effect with the revisions, and that is not the case. So the temporary abeyance of developments is not in effect. So just wanted to point that out. So I feel like I went through that really fast. Anybody have any questions about any of it? Okay, well, if you decide you have questions later on or as we're working through projects or anything, you can contact me or you can contact our engineer, Pat, down here too, and he can also answer questions about the ordinance.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. And I'll